Hello and welcome to Note to File, a clinical research podcast.
A collection of interviews, candid commentary, and general nonsense for the clinical research community.
Check us out at notetofilepodcast.com.
And now, without further ado, on to the
show. Hey guys, welcome to another Note to File, another Sticky Notes. And how's it going, Denali?
Good. It's our last Sticky Notes of January. Last Note to File of January, actually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I suppose that's true. Man, it sneaks up on you, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. I feel like this has been the longest month ever, weirdly. I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe it was me. But it looks like the 200th day of January.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know. We've had weird weather here. Schools finally open again for the first time, like in a week.
Jesus.
I think.
Was the weather that bad?
I mean, no, but like for here again, I think there's something like 8 snowplows in the whole state. So, we're just not really well set up for ice and snow.
It feels like an oversight, but
Well, I mean, this kind of thing only happens like at most once a year, and definitely not on this type of scale. Usually I might be out a day or two every year because of snow. So,
makes sense.
It is what it is. We got tornadoes and shit to worry about, so snow's no big deal. Today is National Puzzle Day. I hate puzzles. I have no patience for that. Not really. I mean, I can do them, but it's just not. It's like Legos, Like I don't want to sit and do Legos. I can't.
I'm not the biggest of Lego fans. I'm building with my kids sometimes, but I'm not mad at puzzles. I feel like I have to be in like the right state, like mental state, to just like sit down and like kind of mind numbing, I guess.
Sure.
I don't know. But then I never have a place for a puzzle. It's like I'm going to start a puzzle and then I'm going to have to finish it. And I'm not sure as shit not going to get into it to get like puzzle mats and shit. I'm aware that they're out there. I just don't care enough to do that. But
yeah, I guess that takes a certain type of commitment. My mom used to do puzzles and I just couldn't.
I'll do like floor puzzles with my kids with like 48 pieces that are like
yeah. That's
3
fine.
inches wide.
I can live with
I'll do that. Get down.
But people get into it. People do like do a puzzle like upside down, so you don't have the colors, or glue a puzzle together once you're done with it to like keep it together. People
put it on the wall.
I don't know. Do whatever you want with it.
There's a whole subculture of puzzling, I guess, that I just never gotten into.
Well, you know what? It's never too late. Maybe one day. Today's also curmudgeons day, which I
like
relate to a little more than puzzles. But
has anyone told Matthew Holt? Because I feel like he should.
Yeah, it's a good point. We have to shoot him a message. We've had problems with StreamYard, so if you're watching, comment or don't. I can't guarantee it's going to come up. Our last time we had Sarah on, like it was just not working. So, sorry if you say something and we ignore it, because we're not ignoring it. We just don't know about it. I feel like there's been a lot of stuff happen over the last week or week and a half, more than we can cover.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of stuff I wanted to potentially, like, I don't know, worldwide acquired catalyst clinical research, which I think we maybe touched on briefly during Dan Sfera's thing. Somebody else, like Clarianus bought Subject Well, which I thought was funny because, Paul Libson just made a post about how like recruitment companies don't buy each other, and then like one bought the other one.
I feel like I'm wondering if people are now in Q1, everyone's quarterly or everyone's like annual results are coming out. People are determining like how they're going to meet their revenue targets. If it's inorganic growth, are they going to do that, or do they have like extra capital from closing the books? And what does that look like? Like maybe that's why folks are clamoring at it now. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they're finding some change in their couch and need to spend it.
So that's what I do when I find change in my couch. Try to buy companies with it.
Yeah, I buy property. Let's jump in.
Yeah, what do we got? So what are we actually covering today? There's a lot out there. What are we actually talking about today?
let's see if we can start here. So I thought this was interesting. I came across it last week, I think, and held on to it. But basically an announcement that Care Access was partnering with Walmart to launch clinical research sites in shuttered health clinics, which seems like kind of a shitty way to put it. But basically going on saying that they shut down more than 50 retail health clinics and sold most of them, but they're launching a new business to bring clinical research opportunities to its market, including rural areas that don't generally have access to the latest clinical trials. Walmart's chief medical officer said some stuff that somebody told her to say. Very nice. So anyway, I thought this was interesting. If you recall, Care Access has been in the news, on and off throughout the years. They had sort of the big Pfizer Lyme disease trial rigmarole, whatever happened there. I find this interesting, and I have a hard time imagining that if they struggle with like general healthcare.
Why is research going to be?
Yeah, how is research going to be better? Isn't it going to be more challenging, if anything?
I mean, I was reading something this morning about Walmart, like they're reinvesting in their pharmacy tech stream. So like there is some initiative internally at Walmart where like they're like promoting and increasing salaries for their like pharmacy tech folks, which is pretty aligned with like their retail clinics. So they're oftentimes like in tandem or in parallel. So clearly there's some initiative that Walmart is undergoing where they're reinvesting in these tails of retail healthcare, whether that's pharmacy, research, etc. I'm curious as to why. I mean, this was a huge push a couple years ago. You saw Walgreens get into the game, CVS get into the game, Kroger was in the game. I mean, you got like everyone who was doing retail pharmacy in some levels. Like we're also going to do trials, and then obviously CVS made a big departure from that. Walgreens is doing it, but more slow and steady, and the other ones have come and gone. And like, I mean, Walmart was doing that at the time too, but then really didn't say much about it. So I'm curious as to like, why now? Like, why is this happening all now for them?
Yeah, I don't know. I do find it interesting. I mean, this mentions, and I don't know this because I think Walgreens is still in the game. I don't know to what degree they're like physically doing research per se, or like treating their retail pharmacies like sites. I don't really know what their breakout is as far as that goes. But I find it interesting to specifically call out government research grants as a source of revenue, which your traditional research site wouldn't really be. I mean, academic centers, yes, maybe some, independent research like might chase grants, but that's not really a typical revenue.
Well, I mean, the Walgreens just got the BARDA grant, right? Like that's
right. That's what I'm saying. So I wonder if like Walmart's going to take a similar angle, or if Care Access is.
Yeah, or what's the breakdown there? Like, what's that relationship too?
Yeah, I say I've got a lot of questions about it, which I doubt. Very seriously doubt I'll ever know what the answer is. But it does say the sites will host on-site Care Access clinical teams who offer health screenings, share information about research opportunities, and help individuals explore participation in studies without traveling far from home. So that's interesting. And I know this is a. I don't want to use the word tactic because that sounds kind of negative. But I've seen research sites use this strategy of like, we're going to give health screenings to people, so that now they're in our database. We could potentially tell them about a clinical trial.
Especially I've seen folks who do some type of like imaging test that's a pre-screen criteria that folks aren't going to have. You offer it to everyone for free, and then folks who have whatever result you already have checked the pre-screening box, and then you have access to the patients. Like, I mean, it makes sense. I think the thing that's interesting about this is that it seems like they're trying to use these as sort of also recruitment. So we're going to use the Walmart name, the Walmart patronage to find patients. We're going to do these health screenings. We're going to get patients. But the article, by its own admission, said they're using shuttered clinics. So clinics that were not successful.
Yeah, already didn't work. Yeah, but that was kind of my like. Yeah, that jumped out obviously most to me, that I'm like, it didn't work on something that should be much more broadly
applicable.
Yes, correct. And this is going to be even less applicable. Maybe it doesn't need to be. And I don't know. There's a, who knows?
Or do you use like, hey, participate in this trial, come to this site, and then it drives business to that Walmart location in general? I don't know if that is there enough of a draw there for that to functionally actually work?
I don't know. If you look here, this isn't exactly like says in partnership between Walmart Health Research Institute and Care Access, new research sites will open in 3 former Walmart Health locations and 1 rural Walmart store.
Itty bitty.
Yeah, not a huge like rollout, which that's probably smart.
I mean,
they haven't said which stores, and the clinic locations haven't been finalized yet. So I'd be really curious to like check one out.
To be honest, though, and I will say, like, from what I know from some of the work that Walgreens has done, it's a similar approach where you're not trying to like open clinical research sites in every retail clinic. Like,
that's
very targeted,
like a nightmare.
Very focused, which is again like you learn what to do, how to do. Like, you're essentially a research naive organization figuring out how to do research at this location, at this site with this population. So if you try to boil the ocean, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I've just wondered why they haven't become patient recruitment companies, like in a way. Like, maybe that's a little bit strong, but I mean, they should have some good data on a lot of patients.
I have thought that for a long time as well, because if you think about it, I go to Walgreens. I'm a medically relatively healthy individual. I'm not super, not a rare disease patient. I'm not but I'm just like a general population.
Physically, not mentally, but physically. Go on.
That's evident. That's quite obvious for the folks listening. But you go and I run and get my prescriptions filled. So they have all of the background on me and my kids and all of that. And I also know Walgreens. So if Walgreens is going to reach out and be like, hey, you might qualify for a clinical trial, I'll be like, oh, that's a trusted name and entity. I would engage, right? It's an interesting format that I've always thought could have had a greater potential than I've seen it utilized.
Yeah, well, and who knows? I mean, it just may not be immediately apparent. I mean, I've gotten emails from Walgreens, I think, that mention clinical trials.
I don't think I have.
Yeah, so I mean, they are, and again, I don't understand what all the different relationships they have or sort of how they're managing that, but it's interesting. I'll be curious to see where they open, and I don't know. I'm just really curious to see how they work within these physical locations.
I mean, I think that the biggest question I have with all of this, with this clinics, with recruitment, etc., how clinical research fits into these larger mega retail corporations as a whole. So from a research angle, I'm just oh, you could do this, that could be profitable. But in the grand scheme of things, does this even scratch the surface of anything there that's meaningful?
You know I mean, I'm sure the answer is no. I mean, I'd be curious to know. I don't know. Walgreens is public and their data should be out. I don't know if they break it down by research. Oh shit, that's right. Yeah. Because I don't know I don't know if their earnings came out with research specific, broken out. I doubt it did, but
doubtful.
No, I doubt even under very good circumstances that it's making a dent in these multi tens of billions of dollar companies where
you know what it does though is it gets free publicity. They get to be talked about on Note to File.
And clearly that's why they've done it. So you bastards, you got us. Walton family, you got us. Damn it. So anyways, it's curious. I mean, I think again, this is one of those things I've always struggled with. It does seem like there's a reasonable place for a retail pharmacy to be involved, but doesn't maybe quite, and maybe exception of Walgreens. I don't know. No one's really quite cracked it.
Yeah.
Or as far as I can tell.
Or wanted to enough to actually crack it.
Well, I mean, I don't blame them, man. It's not, it ain't easy. Even under the best circumstances, it ain't something easy to do. So I completely understand. So yeah, cool. We'll see what happens, I'm sure. And well, yeah, wherever they open,
I'd be curious to see.
I don't want to go to one or get somebody to go to one. I'm just curious to know how that's going to work.
Note to File hits the road.
There you go. cheese caves and care access Walmart locations.
Hopefully it's in Missouri.
Yeah, well, 2 for 1.
2 for 1.
I thought this was interesting. I saw on LinkedIn, and we talked a little bit about a bunch of these life science companies using Claude now. They put this out like on YouTube and posted about it. I'm going to play it just because I
haven't seen it.
I find it interesting, and it created a little bit of talk. Hopefully my audio comes through. I've been playing. New computer, guys. I still have a new computer. So
it's getting a new computer every week.
So here, let's just see. Let's check it out.
Meet Indu, a clinical trial study planner. She's conducting a feasibility analysis for an Alzheimer's study and needs to quickly identify high-performing sites. However, she struggles to come up with country and site recommendations due to fragmented and outdated data. Indu prompts Claude to suggest high-performing sites by simply providing basic details about her study. Claude leverages a secure integration with Medidata's historical cross-industry site performance dataset and predictive site ranking AI algorithms to provide rich and relevant insights. Here, Claude returns a summary of the potential top-performing sites by country, allowing Indu to quickly understand the landscape of ideal sites. Indu further asks Claude to identify countries at risk of enrollment competition, where sites might compete with each other for the same patient pool. Claude analyzes Medidata's recommended sites and external data to flag the highest risk countries, enabling Indu to strategically adjust her site selection to maximize enrollment potential. Finally, for her study, Indu wants to identify sites that have access to required equipment, such as a tau PET scan. Claude not only identifies Medidata's recommended sites that may have the appropriate equipment on site, but critically also identifies those with equipment access via affiliations or partnerships. This is the power of Medidata and Claude's unified capabilities in action, integrating AI analytics and data across platforms to simplify the study planner's work by transforming data into strategic assistance and helping improve confidence in clinical trial execution.
Okay. I don't know. What first thoughts about this?
I mean, so overall, I think the whole general concept of me using the use case of it, I think is fascinating, and needed. I think site selection's a big challenge.
Sure.
So overall, I think the use case of it makes a ton of sense. The questions I have, and I guess I always come back to this when it comes to back to AI, is what data is it using to create these recommendations? And I know they said what data. It's the metadata, whatever data set, right, and publicly available information. But the challenges I have with some of that is what is the data set that they have and where are the holes that are in a data set, right? Data, especially historic clinical trials data, we know we haven't done the best job of. We know it's holes, we know we have challenges. So if we're using a data set like that, are there things we're missing? It also leaves out any sort of idea of novel sites, which we know there's a significant amount of sites that are, if we're only keeping going back to the same sites we're doing, we're not seeing new patients, we're not seeing the folks who don't have access to trials.
Sure.
So that would be my questions about the completeness or the breadth of data that's being used to generate it.
Yeah, and so it seems like, and somebody from Metadata did respond when I was in the comments about some of this stuff, that they were essentially just using, there's no shift in the way they're collecting or have data. This just seems like a new way to query the data that already exists, right? As far as I can tell. Well, which is just typing it in I don't know, instead of looking manually for it, which I guess is still improvement. I don't know.
Right. I mean, and the thing the challenge I have is, so I've worked with, in other capacities, and for this particular example, it was CROs who are doing site selection, and the site selection feasibility process that I was sort of read into for some of the CROs that I worked with, I was just kind of this is to be honest, was pretty trash. It was well, this one person said this at one point, so we think they're here. This is kind of how they performed on this trial, but it was just very we have some of this data and we kind of use it, but it's just you're not actually looking at where the patients are, where the populations are. It was just very status quo. We've used these sites before. We've said that we liked them. Someone said they're good. And then we just keep going back to these same things because that's what we keep putting in this. We keep confirming it in our data sets by selecting the same sites. So like you're giving stronger cues for sites because you keep going back to the same sites. It was just this is, and then they were selecting sites based on they have these past performance and they had these PIs and all should be good. And then you go in and you actually look for patients in the population around them and you're like, there's no one here.
Yeah. Well, I think that's my immediate question too. Like when I saw it, was like, okay, well, what does this mean for sites? Like, and again, it sounds like maybe it's nothing that didn't already exist. Like if it's, again, I think it maybe becomes easier to get some context, but it's still, if anything, maybe the system becomes even more insular to your point. Like how do you get outside what's there? You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, to your point, like where it's, I think this is another level of analysis, which is good. I mean, again, we have the data we have. We can't force it to be something different. So like, I'm all for like getting more insights and more abilities to dig into it in different ways. The concern I have with solutions as we frame them like this, as we bring AI in, it becomes this like layer of layer of trust that's added at some level where I know we talk about people distrusting AI, but it's like, oh, well, AI said it, so it must be true. This is what we got from the data. And it like almost removes accountability in some regard. It's not someone running analytics and figuring it out. It's we put into AI, well, this is what it told us. And so like that's where I would be concerned. Like functionally, conceptually, I like the concept of it. I would be concerned if we aren't being transparent about the holes. We're not being aware of how this is continuing to grow and learn over time based on some of those inherent biases. And now we're removing this accountability because we're saying AI did it. Like that's where I see this becoming problematic.
Yeah, and that's obviously not limited to just this. This is like that's a bigger.
This is just my general take on AI.
What up, Clara? Did it say using all metadata information like all sponsors? I don't know. You would think they would.
That's a fascinating point in the stance
of metadata.
Who is agreed to allow their data to be used like this and commercialized it in this way? Because whose data is it?
They already have those deals.
And I think that's sort of like in the name, right? Like metadata, it's all about the metadata, right? Like that's literally the name of their company. So that's kind of, I imagine that's in play, but it is an interesting concept too. And you see organizations being like, oh, we have all this data, especially solution providers saying we have all this data. We're going to do this, especially something where now Anthropic is commercializing it in some regard, I imagine, to use this and selling it to folks.
Well, I don't know how this is again, something I didn't queue up for this one, but I'm sure maybe you saw too, that these companies are now basically saying like, oh, well, maybe we'll take like some of the profits from these companies who are developing drugs if they're using our AI infrastructure to, do it. They're going to want licensing fees and they're going to want some of the.
So I mean, I think that's a fascinating concept. I was actually talking to my best friend about this in a completely different industry framework. She's a toy designer. But talking about like, you get designers who are using AI to like, for product designs and all of these like toy designs and functional like infrastructure pieces for toy parts. But like, okay, so who holds the patent? Who actually now gets to have a say in ownership in some of this? And so I think that's the concept of like for using this, like who's like, do these AI companies get some of the
like and to that point, who created it? Who made it?
Yeah. Well, again, bigger AI question.
I guess that's a fair point.
But they're all applicable, right? To our industry.
Yeah, no, 100%. And Clara circling back. Yeah, if a sponsor did not agree, then the data set is biased or incomplete, which is not wrong.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm as a site, I look at this and I'm like, oh shit, well, what can I do to get, I want my name to pop up in there. So how do I do that? I guess do good on the studies I get, but then what? Should I be spamming like these amazing press releases about like how great my site is and like every capability I have? Like, will it find it? I mean, I guess it's no different than current like SEO, but I don't know how AI is going to parse through that stuff.
Yeah, well, especially because it said like it's also using publicly available information. Mm-hmm. Like what sources is that? And also, yeah, how are they balancing that? But I think that, I mean, to be honest, that's probably still true for like any internal database from any CRO or vendor or sponsor, where it's coming back to like, you told like worked the CRA and they're like, this site's so good, they're awesome. And it just becomes like opposite of like it just artificially inflates based on potential random inputs.
Again, for sites, and this is where someone from metadata offered to like tell me more about it. Maybe I don't know, maybe they'd be willing to come on and talk about it, because I'd be curious. As a site, I've seen it happen both ways. Like there's been sponsors we worked with where like we kill it, but they don't, for whatever reason, like we get not dropped off the list of like sites they keep coming back to. And then I've worked with sponsors that, like, we don't really do all that great, but they keep coming back to us like every single time. And so it's really hard for me to even understand like what constitutes like us staying on this list, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's confusing to me. And I don't know that, you know, I had a guy from a big sponsor show me like my metrics on their system. And he's like, yeah. You guys did this. We wouldn't come back to you after this. I'm like, yeah, but you brought us 5 more studies. So you did. So I don't understand, you know, I don't understand. So a lot of that is extremely opaque, like for us, and we don't get any kind of like
clearly it's opaque
or like
internally too, right? Like,
well, yeah, I'm saying the guy in charge of it didn't know, and he didn't even know that we're like, cool, you guys, like, we just signed a contract with you guys for a new study. So I don't know what, like, we didn't do that bad. Like,
yeah. Or is that just what they tell everyone because they want you to keep doing better? It's like you're the most expensive. You need to do better if you want more trial. Like, we're just going to keep telling you that you're the worst, so you keep doing better or keep pushing better.
Again, the whole thing is just, again, not nearly clear enough. And I think if you want, look, wouldn't it benefit you to like tell sites like, hey, here's what you need to be doing if you want to keep getting picked?
I mean, I've always thought there's I think we need more, just in general, industry-wide, like and standardization. And I mean that not necessarily like we all have to do things the same way, but like some way to like look across things in a more unified way.
No, I agree. And I think like as an independent site owner, I think I started being more like, no, I'm doing this because I want to do it the way I want to do it. The problem is you've got 1,000 idiots like me who all think the same thing. And like, that's not really a good way to do science, is to be like, no, we're all doing things the way we want to do them. And yeah, I know like it's the science part, maybe we aren't, but again, as much standardization and consistency. So I've swung a lot over the last couple of years towards like, you know what, as sites, like I think we do need to accept that there should be more standardization across what we do. And you know what, you might have to do something differently, but ultimately it has
to be everyone doing it though. It can't just be sites standardizing, or it can't just be sponsors trying to standardize, or it can't just be vendors trying to standardize, right? Like it has to be a unified industry acknowledged shift towards, we have standardized integration principles, we have standardized expectations for operations, we have standardized, you know what I mean? Like there has to be something about it.
I agree, but here's the thing, like, and again, like people can get mad at me, but like I don't think that the sites should be responsible for doing that. And frankly, the site is like, you are giving me a job. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's your responsibility to say, here's how I want the job done. At least to some degree, to a greater degree than probably what is being done. Yeah. Because frankly, I'm not collecting data and doing research like from the fun of it for myself. I'm only doing it for you, research sponsor, pharmaceutical sponsor. So I feel like they need to get together and say like, here's how we want all sites to give us. If we go to it, I mean, it doesn't make sense for sites to come together and say like, we're going to do it this way. I mean, it could, but do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, but I'm saying it can't just be, so like yes, we could, and that could happen, but I think then we're going to end up with a bunch of things that are very, to no fault of their own, one-sided. And they're going to be like, you know what, even if you get a bunch of sponsors to come together and say, this is how we're going to do things, we're going to do it. And then you're like, as sites, you're all like, hey, like, actually, this doesn't actually work. So it needs to be like, it needs to be a joint effort, because sponsors are not sites. They don't know how they operate. So it's like, yes, the sponsor needs to ultimately say like, this is kind of what we want to do. And the sites have to be like, yes, or hell no.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. I don't think it should be done in a vacuum. Like, but I do think it's got to be driven by it can't be driven by sites.
It has to be driven by industry. And I would not disagree. But But I think it has to be both. And I think like this is where like I think true site centricity makes sense. And I think we've looked at it the wrong way. Like it's been like, well, sites, what do you want? We're being site centric. What do you want? And it's like, well, that's not what site centricity is. It's like, it's like when you're talking to kids, like you should give them choices, not like, what do you want to do? Like when they're real little, like, what do you want for dinner? They're gonna be like, I want chicken nuggets and I'm not gonna eat my vegetables and I want dessert first. Right. You're like, well, that's not good for you. And that's not good for like the long term of what we're doing.
Not gonna work, right? Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think there needs to be a balance.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. And it's gonna get more confusing, I think, as more tech and more options come. Because look, I mean, there's, Viva's doing eSource.
We sure are.
Awesome. That's awesome. Then you've got metadata using Claude to do all this type of stuff. I just read somebody else is doing some other kind of connection. So like now everyone's going to be having their own stuff. It's another iteration now of like, okay, now we're all going to do our own full stack foresight and, vendor / sponsor to different degrees, depending on what their relationships are. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting time.
And like, I think this is a loaded statement, but I think if you think about what happened with the EHR adoption, right? I think it's going to have to be something at some level where there's a general, we need to all standardize in some capacity and like synchronize on this is what we're all marching towards and this is how we're going to do it. And it doesn't mean it's one vendor or the other. You had your Epics, you have your Cerner, Oracle Cerners, you have Allscripts, you have other ones that are still even in the space. But like there was a very concerted, this is what we're doing as an industry in this space. This is how we're going to do it. And y'all got to play nice to each other. So it's just kind of like, we need something like that because we've clearly proven that industry can't do it themselves either because we have how many different systems that people are picking and choosing across random boards, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just a mix of how we need to
even the EHR industry is not exactly on none of that shit is interoperable, right? I mean, there's big...
It is. It has to. There's federal requirements. Well, there's federal, and like if they don't like opt for data sharing, I mean, if you think about like, they have to integrate using particular industry standards. They like are required to by federal law. There's, like you have to like acknowledge these FHIR standards. You have to share the data. It's not like your personal API that you're like letting people use or not. Like there is federal regulations that require all of it. They have to share with each other and they have to honor these, specific standards without getting into all the details, right? Like something like that, where it's like, y'all got to play nice. I don't care.
Yeah.
So
I guess we'll see. I think we're still probably a ways off. I think we're moving in, a good direction, but hopefully. I got one more we'll throw up real quick. If I can remember how to, there we go. I just thought this was interesting. This came up when I made the post about today's podcast and then Steve Wimmer and Paul Ibsen kind of jumped in and we're talking, and this is something we've talked about, and this is a real life example. The FDA's Oncologic Drug Advisory Committee has voted 8-1 that findings from a phase 3 confirmatory STARGLO trial evaluating the name of that drug, in addition to the name of this other drug for the treatment of relapsed refractory diffuse large B cell lymphoma, are not applicable to the U.S. patient population. It was a global trial, and only 9% of patients enrolled in the U.S., which we've been reading and talking about the mandate that, a certain percentage of patients, yes, are going to have to come from the U.S. So I thought this was really fascinating. And this was May of 2025. So this didn't just happen. Not good at talking.
I mean, so I'm interested. I would love to know the rationale. And I get the high level rationale of like, you want to test in the populations of patients that are going to take your drug. That is like an ethical principle. We don't fucking do that in the US population. So why saying US is applicable? The piece that we
America,
need.
But America first.
Well, if you're a white man, sure, absolutely. We didn't test this drug in enough white men. Great.
Well, I mean, it does mention that there were, regional demographic differences across these, which in the Asian regions, they were younger, and most patients in non-Asian regions were okay. They were white. Okay, maybe only 2% Black. Okay, maybe that's a problem. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so you're probably going to see these, potentially very distinct demographic, differences across. Now, again, I'm not saying that. What was it? 10% was the number
like
that
9%.
they were.
They said,
But I'm saying
like,
they want it
you
to be
have
at least
to hit.
10%.
I think so. I don't recall offhand.
I mean, even then, that's not going to be enough in a small trial like this. And it said if 9%, so 2% of the 9%, or either way, nonetheless, this is a very
well. But then you focus on the demographics. You don't focus on the nationality.
Yeah, but I'm guessing you're probably unlikely in certain regions to have access to certain demographics.
This is true, but I'm saying we also don't necessarily guarantee that in the U.S. either.
That's true. I mean, you're
just because we
not
have our
wrong.
population, that doesn't
But
mean that's who
America
we're
is a
running trials on.
melting pot. America is a melting pot where everyone's treated equally.
We open our arms, right? Isn't that what's on the Statue of Liberty? We take the.
Probably.
Is that what we're doing now these days?
Well, we've done better before, possibly.
We've done better historically, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, that's like I fundamentally get like the core principle of like the why we're rationalizing this. But I think the real crux of what actually get behind is like the actual breakdown in demographics, not nationality. Which I don't think doing in the US necessarily fixes inherently, because we clearly know we have issues in representation in US run research as well, even based on like population proportions. And we're not making it easier to run research in the US with all of the other things we're doing.
No?
I mean, I don't know your research site. You tell me.
It's easy. It's easy. I'm a billionaire because of how easy it is to do research.
Right. Today. It's
a good point. There's already enough like challenges, alone. I mean, then you add in, just the current state of affairs, let's say. Yeah, it's a little bit challenging.
So, we'll see. But yeah, that's a concrete example of that happening.
Yeah. Anyways, it's interesting. And I mean, I'm pretty sure, I think Steve made reference to even a different study where this was the case. He mentioned a phase 2 study. This was a phase 3 study. But I mean, if that's the case, if they're off by 1% and not accepting that, as sufficient data, I mean, that's interesting.
I mean, I would be curious as to when that sort of like mandate came out. Maybe it was around like spring of last year when they started talking about like we need X percentage of the patient population to be in the US, like when that sort of edict came down, because then it would make sense there. You pick and choose a couple examples to make, and you say like, hey, we're not going to do this. I mean, it makes sense that you'd, I don't know, if it was in the May time frame, it'd be interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't fault sponsors in some ways, because I look at these big, we're in trials that are across the world, and it's almost always some guy in Prague that's like beating the shit out of everybody in enrollment, or it's generally not a US site. It's almost generally a non-US site, and it's generally usually a cluster of non-US sites who are out enrolling everyone. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's because of different standards of care, or who knows? I can't speak to why, but I do find it interesting that it's almost always the case. And I can think of rare exceptions where it's not an outside US site that is weirdly way up the, recruitment ladder.
Well, I mean, if you decrease regulations and
and that's what I wonder too. Like, I do wonder if that has something to play, which again, if you're a sponsor and trying to get the best bang for your buck, what are you going to do?
You want someone that has low regulations and generally has low cost of conducting research.
Yeah.
So again, I get like we want to bolster U.S. research economy. So I get trying to drive the importance of participation of U.S. patients in drug approvals. I think there's a hell of a lot more productive ways to be doing that.
Yeah, no, that's probably true. That's probably true. And, probably good for another podcast.
We'll find some more articles.
That's right. Yeah, if you guys ever have stuff you find interesting or want to see covered, let us know. I feel like we're just kind of always keeping an eye out. So we probably miss a lot of stuff or have some blind spots, but always interested to hear what other people are interested in. I mean, that's why I talked about the last one from conversation with, some folks in the industry.
Well, and I also think too, if there's things that folks don't necessarily want to have their name attached to as well, the notefilepodcast.com does have a contact us page, which you can submit anonymously. So if there's things that you're like, hey, I want you to look into this or talk about this, but I don't want you attaching this to me in any way, shape, or form, you can do that on the website.
Start some crazy rumors. We don't care how true they are. Just post them.
Good.
We'll talk about them. No questions asked. We're not journalists.
This is true. No. We have no sponsors. We're not getting paid. We'll call it Entertainment Podcast.
I'll be at Scope next week. I think you'll be at Scope next week.
I will
we might try to swing
I think we should find a
live.
time to do a live. I think it'd be fun. We'll both be there, so why the fuck not?
Okay. If anybody wants to crash a Notify live, you can kind of like photobomb in the background or whatever, let us know.
Yeah. Otherwise, hit us up if you be at Scope.
Anything else exciting?
No, man. You have to pack.
That's a good point. It's a long one too. So
it is.
Cool. We'll rock and roll. We'll catch you guys at Scope and have a great February. Later.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Note to File. We're committed to continuing to bring you independent and unfiltered coverage of the clinical trial industry.
We want to talk about what you want to hear. So if you have something on your mind, hit us up at notetofilepodcast.com.